Beneath the crushing weight of the Java and South China Seas lies a secret that defies our understanding of human history. We have always been taught that the Maritime Silk Road began with the great empires of antiquity. But what if the true foundation was laid much, much earlier? Deep below the waves, a massive prehistoric landmass, the Sunda Shelf, once held the keys to a sophisticated, interconnected world. This wasn't just a continent, it was a cradle of life and trade that the rising oceans eventually swallowed whole. For decades, the idea of a lost continent in Southeast Asia was relegated to the realm of myth and pseudoscience. But modern science is painting a much more complex picture. The Sunda Shelf is not a myth. It is a largely submerged continental shelf that once acted as a vast, continuous land bridge. It connected what we now know as Sumatra, Java, and Borneo into a singular, sprawling landscape. As the ice ages ended and sea levels rose, this entire world was reclaimed by the deep, leaving only fragments of its existence behind. To understand what was lost, we must look at the ghosts of the past. This submerged realm was far from empty. It was a thriving sanctuary for some of Earth's most significant early inhabitants. The Sunda Shelf contains a rich Pleistocene hominin fossil record, including the legendary Homo erectus. These weren't just wandering nomads. They were part of a biological lineage that navigated this massive landscape long before the first sails ever touched the horizon. The very ground they walked upon is now hundreds of meters beneath the sea. How do we reconstruct a world that no longer exists? We cannot simply dig in the sand. We must look to the seafloor. Scientists are now using high-resolution bathymetric and topographic datasets to peer through the darkness. By mapping the contours of the ocean floor, researchers can reconstruct the paleo-drainage and paleo-river systems of the Sunda Shelf. These digital reconstructions allow us to see the ancient arteries of the land, the massive river systems that once flowed through the heart of Sundaland. These ancient rivers were more than just water sources. They were the highways of a prehistoric era. As the sea levels rose, these river valleys became the corridors for movement, migration, and eventually trade. We are beginning to see evidence that maritime trade in Southeast Asia, involving the exchange of vital goods like silk, ceramics, and spices, utilized key hubs that were once part of this continuous landmass. The connections between modern ports and ancient submerged landscapes are becoming increasingly clear. The traditional narrative of the Silk Road focuses on the great empires like Srivijaya, which connected legendary ports like Guangzhou and Quanzhou. But the archaeological record suggests a much deeper timeline. Evidence indicates that trade activities in this region may have begun well before the 1st century AD. This suggests that the networks we call classical were actually built upon much older, much more resilient foundations that existed during the height of the Sunda Shelf's connectivity. Imagine a world where the coastline was miles away from where it sits today. In this lost landscape, ancient jetties and ports were not just coastal outposts, but vital junctions in a continental network. We are finding traces of ancient trade activities that suggest these hubs were active long before recorded history. These were the original maritime gateways, facilitating the movement of precious goods across a landscape that would eventually be drowned by the rising tides of the Holocene. The evidence is not just theoretical, it is physical. Deep beneath the surface, archaeologists are discovering the tangible remains of this lost world. Some submerged archaeological findings, such as faunal bones and precious artifacts, have been located at depths of 16 meters below sea level. These are not mere coincidences. They are the scattered pieces of a puzzle that, when assembled, reveal a sophisticated maritime culture that thrived in the shadows of the rising ocean. As we dive deeper into the data, the connection between the land and the sea becomes undeniable. The bathymetric maps don't just show underwater mountains. They show the footprints of a civilization. The paleo river systems we've identified acted as the primary conduits for trade, moving spices and ceramics from the interior of the continent to the coastlines. When the sea rose, these routes didn't vanish. They simply transitioned from riverine to maritime, evolving into the very routes we study today. This brings us to a radical theory: the submerged maritime Silk Road. Rather than seeing the rise of maritime trade as a sudden phenomenon of the 1st century AD, we must consider it as a long-term evolution. The routes used by the great merchant fleets of the Middle Ages were likely following the same geographic corridors established by prehistoric peoples on the Sunda Shelf. The ocean didn't destroy the trade routes. It merely changed their medium. But why has this remained hidden for so long? The sheer scale of the Sunda Shelf and the difficulty of underwater archaeology present immense challenges. Searching for a lost port at a depth of 16 meters or more requires specialized technology and immense patience. We are looking for needles in a haystack that is currently underwater. However, with the advent of high-resolution sonar and autonomous underwater vehicles, the veil is finally starting to lift. Every new discovery, a shard of a ceramic pot, a fragment of a bone, a new topographical ridge is a piece of the story. These artifacts tell us that the people of Sundaland were not isolated. They were part of a globalized world before the term even existed. They were masters of their environment, navigating both the vast forests and the burgeoning seas, creating a legacy that was eventually buried by the very waters that sustain them. The Sunda Shelf is more than just a geological feature. It is a monument to human resilience and adaptation. As the climate changed and the seas rose, humanity did not simply vanish. We moved, we adapted. The maritime networks that emerged from the drowning of Sundaland became the backbone of Southeast Asian commerce for millennia. To understand the history of the Silk Road, we must first understand the history of the land that the sea took away. The depths of the Java and South China Seas still hold many secrets. As technology advances, we will continue to uncover the lost hubs of the Sunda Shelf. We are only just beginning to scratch the surface of this submerged history. If you want to join us as we dive deeper into the mysteries of our forgotten past, make sure to subscribe to Epoch Unseen. The truth is often hidden in plain sight. Sometimes it's just waiting beneath the waves.